All right, we are here talking about Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, Salt and Light. We have Howard, Mike, Chase, Lindsay, and myself, Dan. Dave preached in the morning. Chase, you preached in the evening. And, Dave began with this idea of the blessed life flavoring the world. And that in Christ we're called to live these distinctly public lives for the glory of God and the good of others. So you have lots of different pieces in here. You have these two really popular metaphors, salt and light. You have the clear purpose, seeing the good works, glorifying God in heaven. And so we're going to start with a general question, just what's standing out to you? What were some of the things that you are taking away from that sermon as you are responding? Something that you learned, something that you're challenged with, something you're encouraged by?
I would say this one of the things that it was just one statement, like a one-off thing that he made, I guess it's just general responses, but he said decay is slow but devastating. And I thought that was a really good warning. The nature of kind of whether it's falling away from Jesus or not being connected to him is not always this like wham bam massive terrible thing that's happening. It can be slow, but just because it's slow doesn't mean doesn't have like significant consequences. And so I just took that as a warning, not in a healthy way, not in any kind of a negative way, but that was just a good warning to be like, oh yeah, the reality of being salt and light is a continual preserving and cleansing effect. So I just thought that statement in particular was, really grabbed my attention and was helpful and clarifying. Not to be, I guess decay can be deceiving, to use another D word there. It's like you don't think anything's really wrong, but really something is. And so being sure to, in a sense, allow the light of Christ, allow the salt of him to preserve and protect ourselves, and then for the sake of others too, which was more the theme of the sermon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what stood out to me was something he said in the very beginning, which also he moved on from pretty quickly, but he said when you become a disciple or a practitioner or an apprentice of Jesus, that you live like he's real. Basically, that you live like he's alive. So you just have that faith underneath everything you're doing. So it's like we think of Jesus seeking, saving, healing, revealing, protecting, providing, all of those things. We enter into that through the Spirit because Jesus is doing those things and he is actually alive.
Yeah, I definitely noted that as well. Like, acting as if Jesus is real.
Right.
Yeah.
That's literally what faith is.
Yeah.
It's like I'm living in this new reality. I have new eyes to see the world around me the way that Jesus sees it. And so it requires something from me. You know what I mean? It requires me to live differently. No one can see the world the way Jesus does and then go about living it the way an American would live it. It's just like, oh, wait, this is something different. My reality has changed. I have a new lens. This whole worldview conversation kind of comes into it. And so, yeah, it's really good. I was kind of, as I was preaching this in the evening, I was kind of blown away by Jesus' encouragement to those people, those beatitude people, that you guys are the ones who are going to change the world. Like, you guys are going to do it. These people who don't really seem all that blessed, these are the people who are actually going to change the world. They are the salt and light. And so I was really like, oh yeah. And like Dave talked about Christians, he mentioned that Willard quote. What the world needs is for Christians to actually be followers of Jesus, to be who they are. And it's like, yeah, and if Christians are actually followers of him, then they will change the world because they will be salt. They will be distinct and all that stuff, and they will preserve, they will purify, they'll enhance, and they will be light. They will instruct the world, and they would actually help the world and change the world. So I was definitely I had that big mantra. It's like a big giant vision. It's like this big vision of followers of Jesus and what they're called to. And Jesus is like, you guys can do it. And it's going to be through these people, which is different than what we think. We think the powerful, the influential, the ones with a lot of money, all those are the people who are going to change the world. And Jesus is like, no, these are the people who are going to change the world. And it's just really encouraging. And so, it's a different worldview for sure.
Yeah, I agree. And the contrast to that, it was a challenge for me. Is like I like how you pointed out you're being influenced by something. I like how you pointed that part out where there's no neutral ground, especially Americans. You think it's this neutral thing. As long as you don't mess with my world, I'm good. Kind of just hang in the balance. Don't be too pushy, but Jesus, something's progressive. Sin is progressive. There is a very relevant and real opposition out there, the world, the devil. So it's like, hey, we need to be active and truly live as if Christ is out there. He moved past that thing where, hey, I have professed him as Savior, but is he master of your life? So something's going to master you. Is King Jesus ruling in your life, or is it the other things?
Yeah, I was thinking about that in terms of, kind of the active nature of you are salt and you are light. A lot of the, there is this thing of, subtraction that needs to happen in order to, live into those things. But, and that's where a lot of like the application would go to, you know what I mean? Am I doing this? Am I giving up? Am I living a life that is essentially the same as the world? Salt, am I being distinct? All of those types of realities. But, a lot of those things maybe that we see in the Beatitudes, they are like active kind of realities that we're stepping into. Like we're not just not doing the things of the world, but we are doing certain things that are actually salt and light. And so, that idea of actively moving forward and engaging. You were kind of making the point maybe in an earlier, like salt is its own thing, but it needs to, come in contact, in order to be effective.
It's not isolation.
Right.
Being distinct, it's not like, oh, let's go move out of the place and go do our own thing so we can be different. And it's not that. It's actually I'm bumping up against other things that are different than me, and I'm seeking to change them and seeking to restore them and heal them and do those things, as opposed to just going, man, the world is really bad. I'm out of here. That would be distinct for sure.
Yeah, right.
But instead, it's like, oh, the world is different. It's not the way it should be. Let me press in here and make contact and start healing and restoring and preserving and purifying and enhancing. Let me just be a part of this process.
Is it in Ephesians where he says that there's good works prepared for us to do? So it's like you actually have things that have been prepared for you to walk in.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh man, that's just exciting because they are the works of Jesus. And it shows that he's alive and they're works that will glorify him. So anyway, it's exciting to me.
For sure. It's just calling. It's just calling that all Christians have. And it's not like I'm going to do it all. It's like I'm just doing my little part. And that's kind of the whole city on a hill thing. It's like, I'm just right over here in my house first and foremost, and in my own, my own little kingdom here. I'm trying to be a good representative of Jesus and his big kingdom in this little spot. And all of us have our little spots. And, all of us at New City have our little spots. And then all of the church broadly, the invisible church, they all have their spots too. And so that's like a lot of salt that's going around. And that becomes a lot of light. And so all of us together can actually make a difference. And it's amazing, even just hearing, the disciples hearing this. And, of course, there were more than just the 12 disciples following Jesus when he went into heaven and gave the Holy Spirit. But it's like from them, their word got to me. And now I'm part of that light now. And it started with just a very, very dim light.
Right.
But it ended up becoming this big movement that has just withstood tons of persecution and stuff. So it's pretty amazing.
Great.
I think it's encouraging when you look at church history, like you're saying there, you see kind of the growth and development of the light. We kind of associate that more historically with the West. I also think it's encouragement, though, to brothers and sisters who are in those persecuted spots where it is a lot, again, we can let our light shine pretty publicly, and there's not a lot of physical, economic, and political consequences for it. But I think of brothers and sisters in China or in North Korea or in certain states where Christianity is illegal. It's like the blessed life and the salt and life call is still there, and God has done significant things in various parts of the world in our lives, in our history, and I think He's doing that right now, even in other parts of the world. So it's not dependent upon political freedom to let your light shine.
Yeah.
But it does promote a bunch of different questions. I would even think about that here, like, the whole isolation versus assimilation. A lot of the ways this gets talked about in churches like ours with families that have lots of kids is like, well, what are you doing in terms of your schooling choice? Like, I think this should influence that. I don't think there's one right or wrong thing to do, but like, what does it mean to let your light shine as a family? What has God called you to do? Which context are you going to be in that? And again, I don't think this passage necessitates one of them, but I definitely think it, ought to challenge the way that we're thinking about even something as like making disciples in our own home, and what does that look like even publicly for our lives, our kids, our families.
Yeah. So, I mean, this passage ends really publicly. So, like, even going down that a little bit, like what, how do we like propose people try to evaluate that? You know what I mean? Based on, not all being alone is isolation, not all being out there is being a light. You know what I mean? So, like, how do we kind of navigate that? And then even when we get to the whole public nature, you both alluded to it, but Jesus later on in the same sermon is going to be like, don't practice your righteousness before other people. And here, let other people see your good works. One leads to the glory of God, one leads to self-destruction. So that is a real nuance, it seems like. And so maybe spending a little bit more time talking about that. So
Yeah, it's crazy. He says, obviously in the text we just heard on Sunday, in the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds. Now, if it just stop there. Later it says,
that's the purpose.
Yeah.
Like that, right?
Don't practice your righteousness in front of others to be seen by them. It's
Right.
like, oh man,
That's the
what
purpose.
is going on? And then you'll have no reward, or you'll be glorified. It'll glorify your Father in heaven. So it's just like, oh, okay. So there's definitely like an intention thing going on here. But I'll like answer it.
Yeah. Well, first, let's do the wrestling between the isolation and the being out there. You know what I mean? So how do people kind of process that and make decisions? Sometimes
Maybe sticking with the school one. Maybe,
are you going based on perceived kind of need for what I need right now, and how do you? What's the process? What's like the paradigm?
Yeah, I mean, I think the danger of isolation, and this is what the Jewish people were doing. Again, he's talking a little bit more broadly to the nation almost. I mean, he's kind of like reconstituting Israel here, I think, but like what is Israel supposed to be? But collectively, Jerusalem was supposed to be a place where the Gentiles were flowing into it. They were supposed to be, kind of almost like Solomon invited the Queen of Sheba in there, and she came and investigated, and she inspected all the ways that things were doing, and she marveled at the great wisdom that he had had. It's rooted in Deuteronomy 4 and Deuteronomy 8, where the law gave the people of Israel such wisdom that their society would be so well ordered that people would be able to see their good works and then glorify God in heaven. So I think if you're looking at that, that's at the very least, to use Chase's example, like ordering your home in such a way that it's salt and light, and then inviting people into that space. I think is like probably one of the most significant ways that could be happening. Just the idea that sitting around a table and people being able to observe your life in a very personal setting, I think is a pretty powerful reality. But of course, there's dangers there. You don't want to put on a show. You're not trying to like impress people. Dave talked about the strobe light with your thing. The impressive thing is the beatitude thing, the humility, the mercy showing, the kindness, the purity of heart. Those type of things is what would be distinct. I mean, any culture is like all about power, money, prestige, pleasure, and all that. Like that's not any. You can't change the world if you're after those things, because that's what the world's always been about.
Right.
You have to be about something different, and so the saltiness is is that. So I don't know. I think that's at least one way to start getting at it, thinking about of like inviting people into your space. We read it in Hebrews 13 in prayer and praise. Like welcoming the strangers and the outsiders into your spaces. I think that's one, and even into Christian gatherings, like, kind of like going in a concentric circle out from your home to your church, and then it can get even potentially broader. But so that the danger of isolation is Israel was like completely trying to separate themselves from Rome or the Gentiles or anybody else. They did not want any of them in. And that right there is a problem. That's the danger of isolation, is when Christians don't have any regular, consistent interaction with people who are outside of Christ. Now you're in isolation. And again, it doesn't really matter, what your job is or what your schooling choices are or anything else like that. If your heartbeat is,
I got to get away from these.
I got to get away from those who are outside of Christ, that's a danger.
I mean, you can see Jesus doing that, having, that's why the Pharisees are like, why does your teacher eat with these people?
Yeah.
These people are not people who are part of the family, so to speak.
Right.
So why is he doing that? It's confusing to me why he would not want to be drawing as hard of a line as possible between the two.
Yeah. And the irony of, Dave talked about, I don't know if you mentioned this contrast or the spectrum of like isolation and assimilation. Assimilation then would be, you are being just like them. The irony is in isolation, you can end up being very much like the people, even though you think you're different.
Mm-hmm.
You have the same selfish values that people on the outside have. It might look a little bit, it might be dressed up a little bit differently, but underneath it's still the same thing. The danger of assimilation, though, is like, you lose your saltiness where you begin to love, value, and trust all the same things that everybody else loves, values, and trusts. And like I said, you might have a more religious bent to it, but underneath, Jesus said to the Pharisees that they were greedy, just like everybody else was greedy. Even like the issue with immorality and stuff like that, with a woman caught in adultery, Jesus is like, well, if you're without sin, you cast the first stone. They're like, well, we're guilty too. So it's like the Jewish people actually were not any different, apart from Christ. They weren't, even though they were isolated, they weren't really much different than the Gentiles. And so, their isolation was also assimilation. They end up kind of being similar. But the danger of assimilation is you just want to be in the flow and in the know with everybody else, and that's the danger.
Yeah, I talked about when I also had that in there, and I was talking about the Essenes versus the Sadducees, for instance. The Sadducees were in with Rome.
Yep.
And they were like, oh, Rome has given us this power, so we need to kind of like cater to them a little bit in order for us to keep our influence. And that's like almost like assimilation. It's like I'm going to receive from Rome in order to like kind of buddy up with them. And then you have like the Essenes, who are also trying to live according to the, what they thought Yahweh would want from them. And they were like, well, we're getting out of here. We're leaving. We're going to the mountains. This place is going to be bad. And whenever Yahweh returns, then we'll come back. It's like, and so that's kind of the isolation and assimilation there. It's like one example. Obviously, the Pharisees were kind of doing it too in their own ways and stuff. But so yeah, that's how I was kind of getting at it there. You kind of see those examples. And Jesus is kind of correcting them all. He's like, this is how you're actually supposed to be Israel, like you were saying.
I thought it was interesting how Dave kind of shared very vulnerably with us that he was someone who had the fear of missing out, that he would act like people that he was around.
Yeah, ditto.
I thought how instructive that is to know what our bent is, because that's actually living like the world. And we're meant to cast off those identities and those things and really live into the Christ identity, where we would be able to live in any arena and still be found in him and obeying him and be salty and be light.
Yeah, these two metaphors are like real contrasts. You know what I mean? Like the salt up against the thing that needs the salt. Like that's a real friction. That's a real, and then the light, exposing the darkness, seemingly that word picture there, it's like, are you going to be covered in order to not disturb the darkness kind of a thing? And so, to really recognize where am I prone to shy away, or, like whatever my normal response would be, as opposed to, being somebody that is pursuing love by means of righteousness and all of these types of things. We're definitely seeing some, a contrast going on here for sure.
Which I think is a real struggle in America. Mike mentioned earlier how the countries that are under persecution, they can be encouraged to that, but in America, that's in a cancel culture. You don't want to offend people, where everybody's a winner. All that, it's hard to be that salt. There's a tension there, and they're encouraged through this passage is, hey, go rub the world the wrong way, the darkness, shine in it.
I think it takes practice to do it. Like, you can't just theorize your way into it. You've got to practice. There are certain situations where coming out and being separate and not participating in certain activities can make you salty. It's like, well, no, I actually don't watch that. I actually don't go here. I actually don't do that thing. I'm separate from that thing. And that's salty. And some, and how people are going to take that can go one way or the other, where your heart is in that. And so it's like, sometimes that's the thing. And then other times it's like, you want to eat with sinners and hang out with them and get to know them. And you feel like, well, man, maybe I crossed some lines in my conscience there. Maybe I was too assimilated. Maybe I'm not salty enough. And it's like, how you're doing that. It's like Hebrews 6 says that who by reason of use have their senses exercised to discern. Like, you get discernment by practicing things. It's like, I make this certain batch of brownies, and I know exactly how long they need to be in there, and how I literally rotate the pan halfway through, because I know how they cook. And
They're good.
But it's because I've done it so many times.
Right.
Or the other day I forgot one ingredient along the way, and I looked at the batter and I go, oh man, something's missing. I must have forgotten an ingredient. And then immediately, it's just because I've done it so many times. And so you need to practice being salt and light in situations, whether it's bringing people into your home or going into your job, whatever it is, do that over and over again, and then you'll find your way with it. So don't be afraid to try. And then Christians will disagree. This is Romans 14 and 15. Some Christians are a little bit more bent on being separate, and they're doing that as unto the Lord. They're not going to judge you. Hey.
Right.
Or other Christians are more engaged and involved in the culture than you think they should be. It's like, well, you don't need to judge them. Again, hopefully they're doing that as a means. Both of them are doing it as unto the Lord, hopefully, and then the Lord will receive that. So I don't want it to be paralyzing. I actually want it to be more freeing. Go try it. Recognize that Christians may disagree with you on some of those things, but if the purpose and the goal is being salt and light for the glory of God, then do that. Do that thing. Keep pressing into that. Try it.
Yeah, I was thinking about the practices also in if I feel like I am really in love with the way the world operates, then I need to do almost like a silence and solitude thing. I need to step out of the world. And I need to be with God and find my satisfaction in God, and then I can enter back into the world and be a good influence as opposed to just becoming like them. And so, and then in the same way, it's if I need to build affections for God, then I need to engage with Him. I need to engage with His community. I need to do those. I need to practice. That's what you're talking about, is practicing in order to be able to be salt and to be light. So it's if I'm just constantly clinging to the movies or the entertainment or the whatever's of this world, it's I need to get alone and make sure that those things aren't holding me up. It's actually Christ holding me up, and not those things.
Yeah. I had written down that goes along with that. Just, we've talked about creating a rule of life for a little while now. But, you could even break that down. We've talked about breaking it down by calendar, but you can break it down by category. So my personal time, my family, my friends, my church, my work. It's how does this conversation of salt and light interact with what's actually going on? And like Dave said, what's already there? What's already there that I can kind of dial in on, and then what things do I need to take away as opposed to add on? So,
Yeah, getting some clarity on that could be really challenging, and to assume that that I just have clarity when I'm right in the midst of it is probably something I shouldn't assume. I mean, that's pretty routinely over church history been the routine for some Christians. You know what I mean? Like the culture goes a certain way. I need to go retreat and figure this out and then come back. You know what I mean? And, that might be more of a bent of some, personality types or some group of people other than, more than others. But I definitely think that is a healthy practice, especially if we are talking about things that are contrasting and sticking out, how like it is very possible that I could be overly assimilated or something like that, and that just feels normal to me. How do I kind of expose that or evaluate that or look at that in a fresh way? What about this issue of people seeing this stuff and glorifying God, as opposed to people seeing it and it being an evidence of my arrogance and self-righteousness? How do we, one seems really great and the other one seems really terrible. And seemingly, the works are similar, I mean, are they? What's going on? Let's try to paint some pictures here. Like, what were the Pharisees actually doing? What are these people that are salt and light actually doing? What does it look like?
I feel like the things that Jesus says to do in secret, first of all, are things that you can't comprehensively do in secret. Meaning it was in the law. Well, I guess you could pray always in secret, but no, you had to go. Public prayer was the thing.
House of prayer.
Yeah, it's just like it's a house of prayer. So it's like the expectation is that you would pray publicly at some point in your Jewish identity. And the expectation is that you would bring an offering, like you would bring something. And that would be seen. So
these are in chapter
Jesus was
6 you're
watching.
talking about.
Jesus was watching people put offerings into the box.
Right.
Right.
Later on, he sees the widow put
So
the
you're-
one, and he sees the Pharisees put the giant old thing in there.
Yeah. And so you're alluding to things in chapter 6, part of the sermon, practicing giving, practicing the Lord's Prayer,
those
practicing prayer.
Jesus does call them righteousness. Don't practice your right. They're an expression of righteousness.
Yeah.
But the greater righteousness is seen in the motivation as to why those things are done. And the idea of it being done in secret Jesus, I think, is, again, it's kind of like a metaphor, like go in your room and close the door. I mean, I think it can be literal too, but like the idea is that the motivation here is just, I'm just doing this because I love the Lord and the Lord loves me. Like there's that's the greater righteousness. So I feel like those acts, when you're talking about like distinctively religious acts, don't be parading those things. Like, you got to do them. You know what I mean? But like,
Is this against the whole morning Devo time? Posting it on Facebook. It's like,
yeah, probably.
got my copy of Jesus this morning. Sorry.
Yeah. I do wonder, why do we need to know that you're doing that? So anyway, I think, and then when you look at the good works, I think those are the beatitude stuff, I feel like, which is like mercy showing, peacemaking, mourning,
Justice and mercy.
justice, like hungering for justice. So
that's some of the stuff that you're thinking is here. Like, this is like light,
Yeah. So
this kind of
from the
stuff.
sermon, I do think there's a little bit of a distinction between, like, for example, there's a difference between going to worship at the temple, which you should have done, and offering your alms and praying, which you should have done, and showing mercy to the man overtaken by robbers on the road to Jericho. Like that, and then it's like, well, how do you let that become public? How does the Good Samaritan situation become public? Well, I don't actually even know the answer to that question, other than that, at least the innkeeper would have been like, oh, that, you know what I mean? Like, you're doing that. Let those works be done consistent enough. Not that you're like doing them and trying to trumpet them. Maybe the idea is just you do them consistently enough that people notice. Like, over time, you love your neighbor enough, you seek peace enough, you live this kind of way enough, then that light you are light. It just shines, And so,
Well, certainly it would have been visible to the man in the street.
Yeah, I mean, for sure.
you know, the recipient,
Yeah.
and a lot of
And
those
he would have
things.
praised. He would have given glory to your Father in heaven.
Well,
Yeah.
exactly. And so a lot of these things, I think, you know, a lot of these good works are like social relational dynamics.
Yes.
Like you are doing them to another person if you are, you know, being generous. So anyway.
Yeah, and so we talk a lot about in Jesus because Jesus says it's love. I mean, these things are love, and you want to invite people into. You want your home, your church. If you have a lot of influence at your work, or as much as you have, you want to influence those places for genuine love and care for people, and then you just you exhibit that love, and you're trying to invite other people into those realities. I think is the ways of our light shining. Yeah.
Everyone should buy the book Full Moon Rising. It's a children's book, but it's really great. It starts off that the moon is shining at night, and he's really proud of himself. And he's like, look at all this light that I'm casting everywhere, you know. And then he gets this like blinding ray as the sun is rising, and he realizes basically that the sun is the true source of light and power and heat. And the only reason why he is seen is because the true light is shining on him. And so now every day he points to the sun, who is actually giving him all of his light. And so I just think that that's such a beautiful reminder. It's like when you're walking in, you know, good works, that you're really just reflecting. You are radiant because he is radiant.
That's good.
Yeah.
We're aglow
Yeah.
with the Spirit. Remember you were talking about that in Romans?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that can be
that's great.
confusing. Like, that tension there of like, do we do it in front of people or do we not? But
Yeah. Some of what makes it a little different, even that, you know, illustration you were just giving there is, you know, we do have, we have private contexts, we have contexts in our community, and then we also have this other context that we deal with now, like, you know, our fans and followers, you know, and this is like your social media context, which is really what we kind of, I think, probably naturally think of as our lives being seen, like what I'm posting and how I'm perceiving myself. So that's like a whole different category. I mean, it certainly applies here, but if you think about the people who know you online, if you are a big social person, like there's probably a mix of people in there. Probably a mix of people who know you really well, probably a mix of people that maybe have never even met you or a friend of a friend or whoever. And so, you know, if you're thinking of that as a place to like demonstrate your good works, I think it just adds, I don't really have any answers with that one, but I feel like it adds a complicating dynamic as opposed to just, you know, people that you're actually interacting with, people that are part of your community, people that see you do things, like literally see you do things and can interact with you. Seems like there's a, you know, easier level of clarity there, you know, because one of the issues I think for those Pharisees doing those good works is people know that they don't love them. You know what I mean? Like they know why these people are doing this. They hear the other conversations. This guy loves money and he's also doing this. Like we know this guy is a phony. And, you know, when you make it all digital, you just don't know why people are doing things, what they're doing with the rest of their time. You know, you don't really know the person all the time. Sometimes you do. So it's tricky.
yeah, I think of the proverb that says, let another man praise you and not your own lips. I don't think the call from Matthew 5 here is to like do good works and then promote them online. I just don't think that's what Jesus was saying.
No, it's pretty clear that he was.
It does seem unlikely.
Yeah, I think that when he says you are light, let your light shine, I think there's probably a Jew-Gentile thing going on there too, because the problem with the Jews is that they were hiding there. They were refusing to be Israel, true Israel to the Gentiles. And so it's almost like, you know, be the light in every space, as you were saying. Friends, enemies, wherever you are, be light. Be a beatitude person. That is letting your light shine. And, you know, the online stuff can be tricky. I mean, there's definitely people that I perceive to be genuine, you know, that are doing good works. And it's important for them to be online. I think some of the folks that have been involved in kind of like raising awareness for things, like I think of like, you know, the whole like sexual trafficking type thing, for example, like I'm sure there's some of that that's just self-serving, but I'm sure there's other like raising awareness, like, hey, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. You should get involved. Like that's, to me, probably a good use of social media as opposed to, hey, I want you guys to glorify God because I went on this mission trip, and this is what we did. It's like, probably your light shining is just meant for it to shine on the people that you visited on that trip and maybe a close immediate circle. You know what I mean? So I think we can kind of try to falsify, and it can be almost fleshly to try to do it on our own and pump things out there, as opposed to some other groups that might need to raise awareness and call other people into things. That's a little bit different, I think. But it's pretty specific. I got pretty in the weeds there, pretty specific.
There's also, if you do kick it back to the Beatitudes, a lot of those things, you do those things, they're not going to like improve the public's persona of you. You know what I mean?
Right. Some of them will get persecuted for them.
So sometimes, yeah, right. So sometimes see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. I think, especially in like a context like ours, might be things that make me look really good. Like those are like the same. See your good works and like make me look really good are like the same, but there might be the opposite.
Yeah,
here.
It might very well. It's interesting the way Peter says that. We just read this before we hopped on the recording. Peter says that they'll glorify God on the day he visits.
Right. It's not like everybody.
Meaning there's vindication at the end. Like meaning some people will speak ill of you and persecute you, but on the day God visits and vindicates you, then you'll be honored.
Yeah.
So it can go either way.
And certainly a lot of people saw the good work of Jesus, on the cross and didn't glorify.
And again, I think it's so helpful just to remember our brothers and sisters who are being persecuted right now. If they're having this conversation, the good works that they're going to do in Jesus' name are not going to lead to more followers.
Right.
They're going to lead to potentially prison. And so, like, it's just remember what family we're in, and these are our brothers and sisters, and just thinking of their context can help us understand the passage better in our own context. So that's good.
Yeah, the motivation obviously is the key thing there. Obviously, if I'm seeking to draw people in to see, to know God. I mean, we preach sermons, and we sing songs publicly every week. We have a live stream at so that is like, in some sense, it's like, okay, well, we are putting that out there for people to see. We're doing our good deeds, to be seen by others in that sense. But the motivation is like people, we're trying to make God known to people. We're trying to help encourage people. We're trying to teach people who God is, show the love of Christ to them, all those things. So there's definitely like a motivation there, which is why, Jesus is definitely about motivation and your heart and your whole person kind of just like, trying to honor your Father in heaven. So, so there's like this motivation and this idea of trying to draw people in to know the one and to know your reality. And of course that will look different a lot of times or whatever. So.
All right. Well, what's coming up this Sunday? We're moving in. I think you called this the thesis of the sermon. Well, maybe both these sections?
Well, there's some overlap. Definitely the salt and light look backward and forward. So salt and light definitely is like influenced by the Beatitudes. You are salt and light as you, I love what Dave said about Jesus being the blessed man and being united to him. So definitely that's salt and light. But now he's going to talk about like this call to a greater righteousness. And, he's going to say things like, don't be angry in your heart. Don't be lustful in your heart. You keep your word. You don't have to swear by heaven or earth. Just let your yes be yes and your no be no. Those are all expressions of greater righteousness, which I believe also are expressions of salt and light. So the thesis is when you follow Jesus into the kingdom of heaven, you are going to live a greater righteousness, a different salty kind of a life that is light. And so we're going to kind of turn from that introductory stuff of the Beatitudes now into some more specific commands and teachings in like the new law. The new Jesus is the new Moses. So we'll be looking at what a greater righteousness is.